history in a biblical perspective and why we need history in general. As you know, Christians, we have, in the Bible, we have the Old Testament and we have the New Testament. And without the Old Testament, we wouldn't know what the New Testament is all about. The Old Testament, the Bible talks about the Old Testament as being a shadow of things to come. Basically, what that means is the Old Testament leads us to Christ. So Christ leads us to the New Testament, Christianity. Without the Old Testament, we wouldn't know anything about Christ. We wouldn't know that Christ even walked on the earth. We wouldn't know that Christ died on the cross to end the contract with the laws of the Old Testament that God had with the children of Israel. So basically what I'm saying is, if you're getting ready to get married to a female or female to a male, you sign a contract, a marriage contract. And the only way that contract can end, in God's perspective, is if one of you dies. When one of you dies, that contract is ended, so you are free to remarry another. The same thing applies in the Bible. God had a contract with the children of Israel. They worshipped in a certain way. They had rituals in a certain way, and that's the way God intended it. He had a contract with the children of Israel, and the only way that contract would end is with Christ dying on the cross. When Christ died on the cross, the Old Testament contract ended and ushered in a new contract with Christianity, the New Testament, the Old Testament. That's why we have the Old Testament. That's just one of hundreds of reasons why we need the Old Testament. You know, we need the Old Testament to tell us where we came from. And that's for people in general, not just people who say they're Christians. That's just people in general. We need the Old Testament to know where the earth came from, where the universe came from, where anything. We need the Old Testament history. So for example, why are there dinosaur fossils? Well, the scientists would have you believe that a comet came down millions of years ago, landed on the earth, and there was a dust that formed, that covered the earth, and dinosaurs, plant life died, and then the dinosaurs starved to death and they went extinct. But logically, you would think about this. We see animals all the time that die. They get hit by cars or whatever, they just die. And you see them and they're covered in flies and covered in maggots, and other animals eat them, and eventually they just rot and turn back into the earth. So if that were the case, and a comet hit the earth, and the earth was covered in dust, and these dinosaurs just died, wouldn't logically, you would think to yourself, well, wouldn't they just turn back into dust? Things don't just automatically turn into fossils. So then you go back to the history of the flood. People don't know, if you think about it, the flood didn't just happen with 40 days and 40 nights of just rain. That was a major catastrophic event. At that time, water level was higher, and the earth, all the continents were together, and there was just a thin crust, and the water level was higher, and that water level was pressurized. So because the water level was higher, we didn't need rain, because it formed a terrarium effect, in a sense, which constantly kept the earth moist. Things grew bigger, plants grew bigger, and because of the evilness that came on to the humans, everything was corrupt, nothing was good. God decided to wash the earth with water, which meant that all this pressure of this water under the crust, it was a catastrophic event. The pressure exploded, water went up, and then water came down in rain. Mountains came up out of the ground, and the sudden water flow and mud, and everything was instantaneously covered in hundreds of piles of mud. So one could logically deduct that if things were instantaneously covered in mud, those things are going to turn into fossils. That's why we have fossil plants, bugs that are fossilized, animals that are fossilized, and dinosaur fossils. Logically, you could deduct that makes more sense than a comet hitting the Earth and dust covering the Earth, which starved out the dinosaurs and they just died and turned into fossils mysteriously. Anyway, that's why we need the Bible. And another example I forgot to say, people talk about the Grand Canyon. Scientists would have you believe that this river, over millions of years, ran through and it formed this humongous canyon. But if you think about it, during this catastrophic event of the flood, that water, tsunamis of water moving at 150 miles an hour with mud and water and debris would cut this canyon out within minutes or hours. A whole lot. Makes more sense than a river cutting it over billions of years. To me, that makes more sense. So anyway, that's why we need history. That's why we need biblical history. So we know why we are Christians. So we know why we're here. We need historical monuments and history, world history, American history. We need history so that we know why we did things good and why we did things wrong, so we don't do it again, period. So, I was raised in church. My mother drug us to church. I was raised in Church of Christ. We were in church every time the doors were open. And with Church of Christ, a lot of people don't like and I can understand that, because they're kind of arrogant and they just don't approach things the correct way. And if they did, people would make a whole lot more sense. But the Church of Christ really gets in deep in studying the Bible. And my mom taught me to memorize the books of the Bible, and for a reason. Because when you're sitting in church, you need to be able to follow along with your preacher and know where to go and where to find these things, because the guy standing at the pulpit preaching may actually be misled on what he's teaching. Not purposely, but sometimes it is purposely. So you need to know if he's telling the truth or not. And you need to be able to confront that person. I mean, just because he's a preacher doesn't mean he's a god or a saint. He's a human being that can make mistakes. So you need to be knowledgeable. So that's what my mom taught. So I went to church until I was about 12 or 13. And then my mother and father divorced, and we stopped going to church, and I got wild and crazy. And then I went into the military. I got out of the military in 92. 93, I went back to church. And throughout 19 years, I studied hard and studied everything I could study to be able to tell people why I believe what I believe. If you're a Christian and somebody asks you, why do you believe in God? You can't just say, well, because I believe in God, or I just have faith. That's blind faith, and it makes you look like an idiot. So you really need to kind of know why you believe what you believe. So I studied philosophy. I just kind of read on things. I studied geology, science, so that I would have a reason to believe why I believe. So I did that for 19 years. And of course, as a Christian, we kind of fall away. We get depressed. We get discouraged. I had a big family that I really was the only one that wanted to do it. So it kind of got discouraging. I didn't really have anybody to support me. So I would fall away, and I would come back, and I would fall away, and I come back over 19 years. But when I was in it, I was in it. I really wanted to spread the seed, but I really wanted to do it knowledgeably. So, here lately, though, I haven't gone. About 2012, I kind of dropped off and haven't really gone. But what I'm trying to say is, this is the reason why I can kind of tell you what I'm telling you, is because I've studied it. And this is why we need history. biblical history, history of the Old Testament, why we need the Old Testament, why some of the things in the Old Testament we don't need because it died on the cross, why we need history, world history, history of your state, U.S. history. We need visual history. We need things to draw about conversation when we see it. So we've got to have history. We've got to stop removing things. If you remove the Old Testament, you have no idea why the New Testament was even there. You wouldn't even need it because you wouldn't know anything about Christ. You wouldn't know anything about him dying or why the difference is between the Old Testament and the New Testament, because there wouldn't be an Old Testament. We erased it. So we got to have history. This is me telling you about history in a biblical perspective. So anyway, I hope that helps. I can go off on a rant because when I start talking about the Bible, I love it. Even though I don't do it anymore, I still love it. I love getting into history on the Bible, biblical history. And so anyway, that's just kind of some ideas and hundreds of things that why we need the biblical history of the Old Testament. So anyway, y'all have a great day and wish you luck.